The chill of the morning air always seemed to cling a little tighter to our old house, seeping through the single-pane windows, wrapping around the coffee cup in my hand as I watched the first pale light creep over the neighbor's roof, reflecting off the dew-kissed leaves of the oak tree in our small yard. A quiet hum of the ancient refrigerator in the kitchen was a constant counterpoint to the chirping of early birds, each sound a tiny pinprick against the vast silence of a sleeping world. I remember thinking, even then, years ago when the world still held such promise, and the digital gold gleamed so brightly in my periphery, that this house, this life, felt perpetually on the edge of just enough, never quite enough, always demanding more than it offered. A silent, insistent weight pressed upon my chest each time I opened the utility bills or saw the rising supermarket prices, the numbers on the page seeming to grow larger, more menacing with every passing month. The ever-present specter of being house poor was a quiet anxiety that hummed beneath every conversation with my wife, every playful moment with my child, every call from my aging parents needing just a little more assistance, a new prescription, a repair for their own creaking home. Our family's income was always stretched thin, leaving little room for meaningful investments in traditional avenues like the stock market or for building a robust emergency fund. The idea of passive income seemed like a distant fantasy, a luxury reserved for those born into greater privilege or who had simply gotten luckier. We lived from paycheck to paycheck, meticulously tracking every dollar, trying to make the budget stretch just a little further. The relentless tide of student loan debt, an obligation from a past life that felt increasingly disconnected from my present reality, compounded by a mortgage that felt increasingly burdensome, continued to lap at the shores of our financial stability, slowly eroding our peace of mind. Every month, balancing the budget felt like a precarious high-wire act, trying desperately to keep our credit score intact while existing debt piled up, a constant reminder of promises made long ago for a future that felt increasingly out of reach. A future where freedom meant more than just scraping by, where comfort wasn't a luxury but a given. I yearned for a life where risk management wasn't a constant, exhausting battle against mounting expenses, but a proactive strategy for growth, a path towards genuine security. We had minimal insurance coverage, a constant worry lurking in the back of my mind. The thought of an unexpected medical emergency or a major car repair sent shivers down my spine, knowing how easily it could unravel everything we had painstakingly built. That hunger, that gnawing need for something more, for a leap beyond the mundane, was what drew me, inevitably, inexorably, towards the siren call of the digital frontier. Traditional stocks seemed to offer such slow, incremental gains, too pedestrian, too predictable for the urgent needs pressing down on me. I wanted a breakthrough, not a crawl. My friend, a vibrant, restless mind from my old tech company, had introduced me to it, his eyes alight with an almost manic energy as he spoke of blockchain, of decentralized finance, of cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin and other altcoins that he claimed could make millionaires overnight. His laptop screen was a mesmerizing kaleidoscope of charts and graphs, green lines soaring upwards, red dips quickly recovered, always followed by another, even higher peak. He talked of generational wealth, of escaping the rat race, of finally being free, words that resonated deeply within my own weary bones, within the echoes of all those bills and demands. He painted a vivid picture of innovative startups in this space, poised to disrupt entire industries, offering early investors a chance to get in on the ground floor of the next big thing. I started small, just a few $100s from my savings, an almost negligible sum, a test, a dip of the toe into the vast, turbulent ocean of the new economy. My initial investment felt like a nervous gamble, a tentative foray into uncharted financial territory that certainly didn't feel like sound risk management. It was more of a hopeful prayer, a clandestine experiment. Then a week later, a small gain, a surprising, thrilling 15% increase, enough to buy a nice dinner, a little extra something for my child. The taste of that initial success, however small, was intoxicating, like finding a hidden spring in a desert. It whispered to me, promised me that this was the path, the one I had been waiting for, the secret that had been hidden in plain sight. It felt like I had unlocked a cheat code to the universe, a way to bypass the slow, grinding reality of earning an income the traditional way. I started spending more time after hours, after my child was asleep, after my wife had drifted off, hunched over my own laptop, the blue light reflecting in my tired eyes. I researched, read, joined forums, learning the lexicon of the new world, white papers, market caps, initial coin offerings, the promises of new decentralized applications, smart contracts. I delved into the intricacies of Bitcoin mining, the potential of various altcoins, the future impact of DeFi on traditional banking. I felt like I was part of something bigger, something revolutionary, not just another cog in the old corporate machine, perpetually optimizing some back-end system for a marginal efficiency gain. My old tech job, once a source of pride and stability, began to feel dull, pedestrian, a slow grind when there was a rocket ship waiting for me to board. My mind constantly drifted during team meetings, during code reviews, wondering what the cryptocurrencies were doing, checking my phone under the table, a growing obsession taking root, a quiet fever building within me. My initial investments grew, not dramatically, but steadily enough to embolden me, to convince me that my friend hadn't just been dreaming, that this was real, tangible wealth being created right before my eyes. The anxiety of being house poor began to recede, replaced by a new, exhilarating kind of tension, the thrill of the gamble, the promise of the payout. It was a dangerous form of risk management, one where I felt invincible, believing I had an innate understanding of this new frontier. I started talking about it more openly, cautiously with my wife, explaining the potential, showing her the modest gains. I tried to convey the excitement, the promise of true financial freedom, of building real passive income streams that would finally insulate us from the relentless financial pressures, perhaps even allowing us to afford better insurance and fully pay off our debt. But she, ever the pragmatist, the steady hand, remained skeptical. Her eyes were filled with a quiet concern that I entirely mistook for a lack of vision, for an unwillingness to embrace the future. Her gentle warnings about volatility, about unproven assets, about the lack of traditional risk management in such a speculative market fell on deaf ears. They were overshadowed by the growing chorus of success stories I devoured online, the testimonials of early adopters, the stories of people just like me who had quit their jobs, bought houses, found financial freedom through Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies. That narrative, that intoxicating narrative, became my personal truth, drowning out the quieter, more sensible voice of caution. Daily ritual became sacred. Wake up, check the charts, make coffee, check the charts again. My mornings were less about the sunrise and more about the green lines on my screen. I felt a surge of power, a sense of control I'd never experienced in my traditional stock market dealings, which always felt too slow, too regulated, too boring. Here, every day was a potential turning point. The small gains, accumulating, started to feel like undeniable proof of my acumen, not just luck. My friend and I would exchange messages throughout the day, coded phrases about moons and Lamborghinis, the ultimate symbol of crypto success, a secret language that bound us in this shared, exhilarating pursuit. He spoke of decentralized autonomous organizations, DAOs, and the future of governance, and I felt like I was at the forefront of a genuine revolution, a new paradigm for wealth creation that left the old financial systems in the dust. My wife's quiet queries about our savings, about our retirement planning, were met with vague assurances and dismissive waves of my hand. It's all part of the plan, I'd say, you'll see. But she didn't see. She saw me glued to a screen, increasingly distracted, less present. The moment of decision arrived like a slow-motion inevitability. I decided to go all in, not recklessly, I told myself, but strategically, seizing an unparalleled opportunity. It was a new project, an exciting platform that promised to revolutionize a niche market within the burgeoning cryptocurrencies space. My friend, who had already invested significantly, vetted it thoroughly. It seemed to have all the right indicators: a solid, anonymous team, a common practice I rationalized, a clear, ambitious roadmap, a passionate, rapidly growing community. This wasn't some fly-by-night operation. This was a legitimate startup with real potential, a chance to get in on the ground floor before it exploded, offering incredible passive income opportunities through staking and yield farming. I pored over the white paper, convincing myself of its technical brilliance, its economic model, its destiny for greatness. The sum I was about to commit was vast, a significant portion of our family savings. Money that had been painstakingly set aside over years, earmarked for our child's education fund, for a renovation we had dreamed of for years, a sunroom, a larger kitchen, simple comforts that would transform our perpetually just enough house into a home of genuine comfort. It was also our safety net, an insurance policy against the uncertainties of life, against a sudden job loss or a major illness. My hand trembled as I navigated the digital interface, authorizing the transfer. The click of the mouse was a final, irrevocable act, a bridge burned, a leap of faith into the digital unknown. I felt a surge of fear, quickly followed by an intoxicating rush of bravery, of conviction. I was seizing my destiny. I was breaking free from the shackles of debt and financial insecurity, forging a new path for my family. For a while, it seemed I had made the right choice. The coins surged, doubling then tripling, the numbers on my screen soaring, unreal, exhilarating. My portfolio, once a modest collection of speculative stocks in Bitcoin, was now a testament to my genius, swelling with the promise of millions. I felt a rush unlike anything I had ever experienced, a vindication, a triumph, a profound sense of having outsmarted the slow, predictable world. I started dreaming bigger, far bigger than a simple renovation. I envisioned quitting my tech job, a place that now felt entirely beneath me, and starting my own crypto-related startup, a small consulting firm helping others navigate this new landscape, a venture that would leverage my newfound expertise. My friend and I discussed it late into the night, mapping out strategies, drafting business plans, fueled by cheap coffee and the electric hum of possibility. The thought of leaving the corporate world, of being my own boss, of truly building something, was incredibly alluring, a freedom I craved, a release from the stifling routine, the endless meetings, the artificial deadlines, the quiet anxiety of redundancy that always lingered in the background of any long-term tech job. This was my chance to build a legacy, to ensure my family's income was secure for generations. My parents, their health slowly declining, their needs growing, had also become a quiet, persistent pressure. Their calls about leaking roofs or rising medical copays were a constant reminder of my responsibilities, a heavy weight that settled on my shoulders. I saw the crypto gains not just as my own escape, but as a way to truly support them, to lift that burden, to provide them with comfort in their twilight years, to make sure my child never had to feel the pinch of financial insecurity that had shadowed so much of my own upbringing. This financial insurance against future hardship, this ability to offer tangible help, fueled my conviction, made my risky investments feel righteous, necessary, a sacrifice for the greater good, for the future of us all. This was not just about me, it was about every person I loved. The house, too, began to feel less like a burden and more like a symbol of potential. The walls that had once felt confining now felt like a foundation for something grander. I imagined the renovations, the sprawling garden my wife dreamed of, the spacious playroom for our child, all within reach, just beyond the next digital surge. The quiet moments with my wife became tinged with a subtle dishonesty, a withholding of the full extent of my investments, the true scale of the risk management I had so foolishly abandoned. I wanted to surprise her, to present her with a fait accompli of wealth, a done deal, a sudden liberation, not a risky gamble. I imagined her face, alight with joy, relieved of all her financial worries, able to pursue her own dreams without the constant shadow of the budget. And so the marital strain began, subtle at first, a slight tension in her jaw when I mentioned the market, a polite but firm change of subject when I started talking about blockchain, Bitcoin, or other cryptocurrencies. There was a growing chasm of unshared information, of unspoken anxieties, a quiet withdrawal on her part that I rationalized as her just not understanding, not seeing the bigger picture. She couldn't grasp the potential for passive income or the revolutionary nature of these startups. I saw her caution as a lack of faith, a weakness I couldn't afford to acknowledge in myself. I became irritable when questioned, defensive when challenged. The blue light of my laptop screen became a barrier between us, a portal to a world she couldn't enter, and I wouldn't let her. Then came the whispers, faint at first like distant thunder, then growing louder, more insistent. Rumors of instability, of regulatory crackdowns looming on the horizon for various cryptocurrencies, of a major exchange facing liquidity issues. The charts, which had always soared, began to falter, jagged peaks followed by deeper, more sudden drops. The exhilaration began to curdle into a cold dread, a sickening lurch in my stomach each time I refreshed my screen, watching the numbers, my numbers, our numbers, shrink, evaporate, disappear. I clung to hope, convinced it was just a dip, a temporary correction. The market always recovers. Everyone says so. Buy the dip, they urged in the forums. This is the opportunity. This was the moment for true courage, for conviction, for doubling down. This was just another test of my risk management strategy, I told myself, albeit a severe one. I poured more in, every spare dollar, every last vestige of our safety net, mortgaging a piece of the future, telling myself it was a calculated risk, an act of courage, not desperation. I even considered a second mortgage, tapping into the very equity of our home, the one thing that had always been a bastion of stability. The thought of adding to our existing debt was terrifying, but the fear of missing out, of seeing my fortunes dwindle further, was a far more powerful motivator. The pit in my stomach grew deeper, gnawing, a constant ache. Sleep became a luxury I couldn't afford, plagued by nightmares of flashing red numbers and echoing laughter. My wife noticed, of course she did. The dark circles under my eyes, my distracted answers, my sudden bursts of irritation, my constant phone checking, even at the dinner table. She saw the ghost of a man consumed by an invisible battle. One evening, as we sat at the kitchen table, the half-eaten remains of a simple weeknight dinner between us, the silence thick with unspoken words, she asked, her voice soft but firm, what was going on, really. She didn't accuse, she simply inquired, her eyes wide with a quiet, heartbreaking concern, and I crumbled. The dam broke, the torrent of fear and shame rushing out, explaining everything. The extent of the investment, the secret withdrawals, the growing losses, the absolute terrifying gamble with our child's future, with our entire financial existence. I confessed how I disregarded her warnings, how I dismissed her cautious approach to risk management as a lack of understanding. I laid bare the folly of my pursuit of passive income through such reckless means. Her face, usually so composed, so gentle, contorted with a mix of shock and betrayal. A look that cut me deeper than any spoken word, deeper than any loss of money, because I had broken her trust, shattered the foundation of our shared life, our mutual understanding of financial responsibility, our collective budget. The silence that followed was deafening, heavier than any financial burden, a silence filled with the echoes of everything I had jeopardized, everything I had risked. The marital strain became an open wound, raw and bleeding, an undeniable chasm between us. Our shared life, carefully constructed, now felt like a precarious stack of dominoes, each one teetering on the brink. The project I had invested so heavily in, the one that promised so much, began to unravel. It started with cryptic messages in the community forums, then a sudden halt in development updates, then rumors of internal conflicts. Soon, its founders disappeared entirely, their website going dark, their social media channels purged. Rug pull, they called it, a term that sounded too benign for the utter devastation it wrought, pulling the rug out from under thousands of us, leaving us with nothing but worthless digital tokens. My investment was gone, vaporized into the ether, a ghost of what I had believed was my ticket to freedom. And the larger market, already teetering, finally crashed. A seismic event that reverberated through the entire digital economy, washing away billions, a flash flood of lost dreams and broken promises. Bitcoin plummeted, dragging all the altcoins down with it, a brutal, unforgiving correction that left countless portfolios, including mine, in ruins. I watched helpless as my portfolio, once a source of exhilarating pride, dwindled to nothing, a few pathetic fractional cents remaining, a mocking reminder of what once was. The realization hit me with the force of a physical blow, a cold, hard truth that stripped away all my illusions. I had lost it all, everything. The family savings, the child's education fund, the dream of freedom, the hope for my parents' comfort, all gone, swallowed by the insatiable maw of the digital gold rush. The anxiety of being house poor returned with a vengeance, no longer quiet but a screaming, visceral panic, because now we weren't just poor for a house, we were poor, period, with a mortgage, with student loan debt, with aging parents who depended on us, with a child who deserved so much more than I had foolishly squandered. My dreams of passive income and financial independence lay shattered at my feet. Our budget was in shambles, our credit score on the verge of collapse. The insurance policies we had were barely adequate, certainly not enough to cover the looming financial abyss. Then came the layoff, the inevitable consequence of my distraction, my failing performance at the old tech company. The quiet, uncomfortable meeting with my boss, his voice low, apologetic but firm, saying that my priorities seemed to have shifted, that my focus was no longer on my work. He was right, of course. For months, my mind had been consumed by charts and forum discussions, not code. I walked out of that building for the last time, the sterile office air suddenly feeling heavy, suffocating, my ID badge clutched in my trembling hand, the weight of the empty parking lot pressing down on me, the sun too bright, the world too loud. The emotional toll of that layoff, after so many years, so much dedication, was crushing, a final nail in the coffin of my former self, my identity as a successful, stable provider, shattered. I drove home in a daze, the steering wheel slick with the sweat of my palms, the city lights blurring into an indifferent smear, knowing I had to tell my wife, knowing this would be the final, unbearable blow. And when I did, she listened, her face pale, her eyes distant, her composure unnerving. The silence this time was not just strained, but hollow, pregnant with the unspoken word, divorce. The thought of divorce hung heavy in the air for weeks, an invisible, suffocating cloud, poisoning every interaction. I saw it in her eyes, felt it in the way she moved around me, the careful distance she maintained, the way she tucked our child into bed with an extra squeeze, as if to make up for my monumental failings, as if to protect our child from the debris of my ambition. The burden of student loan debt, which had always been manageable, now felt like a crushing boulder, impacting every single decision, every sparse grocery run, every turn of the light switch. The pressure of supporting aging parents, now compounded by my own complete lack of income, became an unbearable weight, a constant knot of shame and helplessness. The sandwich generation dilemma, once a distant concern, had turned into a full-blown financial catastrophe, a Gordian knot of responsibilities with no obvious solution. I considered bankruptcy, spoke to a lawyer, listened to the grim assessment of our assets, our debt, the long, arduous road to rebuilding, the stigma, the loss of everything, even the small, cherished possessions we had accumulated over the years. The walls of our house, once a symbol of our aspirations, now felt like they were closing in, the paint peeling, the floorboards creaking, each imperfection a magnified mirror of my own failures, each bill that arrived in the mail a fresh stab of dread. Our meticulously crafted budget lay in tatters, a testament to my recklessness. My credit score plummeted, a tangible representation of my broken financial life. I started taking odd jobs, anything I could find, delivering groceries, driving for a ride-sharing service, anything to put food on the table, to keep the lights on, to avoid the final, ultimate collapse. My pride, once so inflated by the prospect of crypto millions and passive income, had long since evaporated, replaced by a desperate, gnawing need to survive, to provide, however meagerly. My hands, once accustomed to the soft click of a keyboard, now ached from manual labor, my body tired, my spirit weary, haunted by the specter of my former ambition. I thought of the stock market and traditional investments, once dismissed as too slow, now seemingly a beacon of stability I had foolishly abandoned. And yet my wife, despite everything, despite the betrayal, the immense loss, did not leave. Though I saw the hurt, the deep, abiding disappointment in her eyes, she stayed, a quiet, steadfast presence. One evening, as I sat on the worn couch, staring blankly at the wall, the faint smell of our child's bath soap drifting from the hallway, a sense of utter brokenness washing over me, she sat beside me, not speaking, just offering a shared silence. Then she reached out, taking my hand, her fingers tracing the lines on my palm, a small, gentle gesture of support that broke through the impenetrable wall of my despair, a moment of profound, quiet grace that reminded me that even in the wreckage, something precious remained, something worth fighting for, something worth rebuilding. She didn't offer platitudes, didn't say it would be okay, just held my hand, and in that simple touch I found a sliver of strength, a quiet resolve to pick up the pieces, however shattered they might be. The journey back was slow, painful, marked by small, almost imperceptible victories. I found a new, albeit modest, job in a different sector, no longer the high-flying tech world, but a stable, reliable position that paid the bills barely but consistently. It was a humble income, a far cry from the passive income dreams I had chased, but it was honest and it was ours. The supermarket trips became less about impulse buys and more about careful budgeting, scrutinizing every price, planning every meal, a stark contrast to the days when I imagined lavish feasts with crypto millions. I found a strange, unexpected joy in these small acts of management, in the precise calculation of our meager resources, in the warmth of a home-cooked meal prepared together with my wife, the simple aroma of garlic and herbs filling our small kitchen, a comfort far deeper than any speculative gain from Bitcoin or stocks. The empty coffee cups on the table, once a symbol of hurried mornings and late nights chasing digital dreams, now just held the lingering warmth of a shared breakfast, a moment of connection before the day began. I started spending more time with my child, truly present, truly engaged, building block towers that toppled with joyous squeals, reading stories aloud, their small, trusting hand nestled in mine. Those moments, once overshadowed by the relentless pull of my phone, by the incessant checking of charts, became the most precious currency, worth more than all the digital gold in the world. My parents, though still needing support, found comfort in my presence, in my steady, if diminished, care. I learned to ask for help, to lean on my wife, to be vulnerable, to admit my failings, to recognize the importance of true risk management in life, not just in investments. In doing so, we forged a new kind of partnership, stronger, more honest, built not on hidden wealth but on shared struggle and quiet resilience. We slowly started to rebuild our credit, painstakingly, one small payment at a time. The concept of insurance became not just a necessity, but a symbol of responsible planning, a way to protect what truly mattered. The house, still old, still creaking, still demanding, no longer felt like a cage but a shelter, a testament to our perseverance, the walls holding not just our possessions but the memories of our stumble, our fall, and our slow, arduous rise. I still look out at the oak tree in the morning, the light still pale, the air still cool, but the anxiety is gone, replaced by a profound sense of gratitude, a quiet contentment with the simple rhythm of life, the everyday moments, the small joys, the enduring love. I may have lost it all, every last cent of that digital dream of cryptocurrencies and startups, but I gained something far more valuable, a clarity, a groundedness, a deep, abiding understanding of what truly matters. I learned to live with enough, to find richness not in the pursuit of more, but in the appreciation of what is already here, tangible, real, enduring. Thanks listening this story. Now I want to hear your thoughts in the comments. Let's see how global our community is. Comment your country down below. Share this story to your friends and leave a like and subscribe for more episodes like this.